Synchronicity 444, yeah? So Ethereal Synchronicity 444, esync 444, what we're saying. Live and direct reporting from my place, my space, my base to wherever you're at in the world. Now, as you can see on the screen, we've got the one and only Nore, aka P.A.P.I, aka Noreaga, aka Victor Santiago. Yeah? So, Nore, basically here to give you your flowers whilst you can still smell them, and we'll talk about some of your friends and collaborators, people that you came up with. Actually, mentioning you came up, yeah, I was just listening to Pun and you on that track and classic material. So Noreaga actually started out with another MC by the name of Capone, and together Capone and Noreaga, the initials are CNN, or that's how they stylized it. And basically after the US news channel, and they actually called their first album The War Report. So Noreaga kind of come to the stage at that point, but then elevated even further once his partner in crime was no longer around doing a bid inside. So strangely enough, right, Capone and Noreaga actually met in the joint, just to keep it straight up. And they both met on a similar charge of shooting people, with Capone specifically shooting supposedly a cop or something of that nature. And Noreaga put it, I just shot a regular dude. Ain't shoot no cop. But yeah, that's how they met and formed a bond. I think it was kind of like someone that was in the jail that kind of knew them both or had met them both and kind of said, you guys need to meet. And they did meet and they hit it off and they kind of gelled like that. Like this, yeah? So I'm saying that because I'm going to show you how it links up in astrology. And yeah, the zodiac in the sky, how the destinies aligned, how these guys basically did what they did. So Noreaga took his name from the Panamanian president, I want to say, that was Manuel Noreaga. And yeah, I think it's this one. There we go, Manuel Noreaga. And Capone, if I can find it, he took his name from the very famous Alphonse Al Capone, as we know him. Yeah? And those names I don't think were by any kind of accident. And I'm also going to get into their other collaborative partners and mentors, which is Percy Chapman, aka Tragedy Gaddafi, and none other than the one and only Nas Escobar Jones. And gotta give you a little birthday shout because it's actually 14th over here. And yeah, where you are, it might be the 13th, and that means give Swiss Beats his birthday shout too. So these are the Virgos, by the way, Virgo sons. But this one, I thought I'd start with Noreaga and how all of them kind of, not how they got the names, but how the names aligned literally destiny with them. And yeah, that's how we know them today. So let me look at Noreaga's chart on an individual level. Noreaga himself has the sun in Virgo, don't know his rising sign, and I'm going to say 90% to 95% has his moon in Gemini. So we're going to say Virgo sun, Gemini moon. So why is Noreaga the energy guy? Why does he bring the fire to the party? Well, what I've just circled there is Mars, and next door by it is Jupiter, and they actually conjoined, so we call that a conjunction, at 2 degrees and 3 degrees Cancer. Yeah, so Mars is how we do something, the energy that we kind of use to do that, how we get it done. Jupiter is, it's like an expansion force, also deals with like wisdom and belief and faith in its own right. You can say that's definitely there with Jupiter, self-belief even. So yeah, I kind of think it helps Nore believe in himself and what he does and what he can do. or he's taken what he's got and made the absolute most of it. So for that, sir, gotta salute you absolutely over. So notice you got Mercury retrograde by the sun. Yeah, so it's literally at 11 degrees Virgo while his sun's at 13 degrees without a birth time. So I mean, it could have inched over to 14 degrees in all honesty, but for the purpose of this video, it's 13 degrees. And I actually see that your Neptune, so Noreaga's Neptune, is at 13 degrees in Sagittarius. So this forms what we call a square aspect, and with it being to the sun, it's going to be something that is visible in Noreaga's character. So it's quite funny actually, because Neptune, among many of the things that it deals with, I'd say alcohol, addiction, and drugs of air, potions, gases, all kinds of things can come from Neptune's involvement in the party. With it being such a tight aspect to the sun, I'm definitely saying that it's had a big part to play with Noreaga. In fact, to be honest with you, famous for selling crack on crates is one of his lyrics from the CNN album. And also the reason why Noreaga became even more famous was this guy, Pharrell Williams. Because once the CNN album had done its thing and was doing its thing, it caught the attention of Pharrell, who then, when he meets Noreaga, actually spits the whole first verse of Blood Money Part 1, because there's actually 3 parts of that now, but Blood Money at the time, and he spits it all to Noreaga, the first verse and that. Nore's impressed by it, listens to a couple of Pharrell beats, because Pharrell's actually said, got some music for you. Pharrell giving some specific instructions though. He said, do not listen to this third beat until you get to, I think it's Miami, where Noreaga was travelling to. And Pharrell actually says, people don't listen to the instructions I give to them. And was like, at the time, he wasn't the famous Pharrell Williams that we know today, but obviously still a very powerful man with self-belief in himself. Now, I say this again because him and Noreaga seem to share this thing of having Mars and Jupiter. So when Superthug comes out, you've got these two men who are aligned, one the producer, one the MC, and they have very strong connections in their birth charts. So for Noreaga, it's his south node, which is in Aries. His north node's in Libra, opposite, 15 degrees too. And for Pharrell, his Venus, Sun, and Chiron are at 14, 15, and 16. So smack bang on either side of Noreaga's south node, which speaks to meeting people kind of either early in life or from the jump, or having some kind of past life connection with them. So I guess it's kind of like how it just instinct linked, and yeah, they got it going with that massive super smash, Superthug. What? Yeah, so Nore's like the what guy. He's known for that. So is there anything else that I noticed about these two in particular? Yeah, they've got Mars and Jupiter, and they have the south node synastry. So that is quite a connection for them two. Capone and Noreaga, the two artists, something I noticed about these two is they're born about a year and a half apart, but yet they still manage to have Pluto within 1 degree, Uranus within 1 degree, and they have smack bang Neptunes. So it was Noreaga that blew with the Neptunes, but this Neptune element of the two artists together definitely speaks to some kind of a strong connection between the two. And it's always seemed like, from what I can see, Noreaga's been very loyal to the fact that Capone brought him in the game and made sure that like he stuck around doing what he could and building the name for the crew, so that when Capone came home, there was something for Capone to move forward with. Oh, by the way, interesting side note of the backstory, Capone used to be a DJ, or early in his career, before he even probably picked up the mic, he was a DJ. Something not a lot of people don't know, but I feel like I even heard that many years ago as well as recently. So yeah, those two men have that in common. And then all of the guys that I mentioned already. So you got Tragedy and Noreaga, Tragedy Gaddafi, aka Traj, and Nore. So what I seen with these two guys, what I thought was really interesting, is they have the same Mercury. Now I'm not sure if I said it already. I've done a lot of takes and not everything's, you know, working out. Technical problems. So yeah, Traj was and has been the carrying over force from the 80s through to the 90s in terms of New York hip hop and just hip hop in general, but for his local guys. So he was a Juice Crew member. Juice Crew represented Queens in the hip hop scene. Noreaga, Capone, Nas, they're all like Queens representatives. And that Mercury placement, what was really significant about it, Noreaga has his at 11 degrees Virgo, retrograde. Traj has his at 10 degrees Virgo, stationary. About to go retrograde, I believe. I looked that one up. So I can see how the thinking may have aligned and how Traj found it easy to kind of communicate certain things to Noreaga in that relationship that they have. Also, I can actually see the south node of Traj is actually not too far from the Venus of Noreaga, just as it was with Pharrell Williams, and the other way around. Just looking to see if there's anything else that I could make connections between these two guys. Not specifically, but that was a significant connection of having a very similar Mercury element. Then Noreaga actually took his name from the one and only Manuel Noreaga, who was a president of Panama in his time, very famously. And I think this is also another signature for how the name and how the stage name, the creativity of it all. So 13 degrees Virgo Sun with the 11 degrees Mercury in Virgo are conjoined to the 13 degrees Neptune in Virgo of Manuel Noreaga. So they even have Neptune square Neptune, because Noreaga's own sun squares his Neptune. And then something else I actually noticed about Manuel Noreaga, and thought it was an interesting point, is he has Jupiter square to his sun, and his sun's in Aquarius and his Jupiter is in Scorpio. So it's the square to the sun from a big body like Neptune or Jupiter that I see that lines up for those two in particular. And then in Capone's case, he's taken the name from the great Alphonse Capone. I say the great, greatly known, notorious and what. They have some interesting synastry where about, I think it's 5 planets from what I can see. So the Jupiter of Al Capone is on the Uranus of Khayyam Capone. Khayyam Holly is Capone's government name. So I call him Khayyam Capone for this, and Al Capone. So that's in Scorpio. Jupiter in Scorpio for Al Capone. Uranus in Scorpio for Khayyam Capone. Venus is in Sagittarius at 13 degrees again. 13 degrees is the Neptune degree of both Capone and Noreaga. So that's interesting. I also actually noticed it's opposite to the Pluto of Al Capone, but we'll get back around to Pluto. As we can see up here, this is Mercury in Khayyam Capone's chart. So the MC is outer and the mobster's inner. And the Mercury is at 24 degrees Capricorn, whilst the Sun of Al Capone is at 27 degrees Capricorn. So 2 to 3 degrees away again. And then back round to this side, you've got the Mars of Khayyam Capone, the MC rapper, conjunct to the Pluto of Al Capone, the mobster. says 13 degrees, literally 1359 retrograde. Whereas this is 16 degrees, so it's a little bit off by a few degrees, but not so many that it doesn't mean anything. And then again, we have another Mars connection. It's the Mars of Alphonse Capone at 29 degrees Cancer and retrograde, touching the Saturn of Kayam Capone at 27 degrees Cancer, 59 minutes, and also retrograde. So there's another important tie-in for those men. And then Gaddafi, he taken his name from Muammar Gaddafi, who was the Libyan president, dictator, whatever you want to call him. And the synastry I've seen between these two men is quite interesting. Initially I was like, maybe it's not a hit, but it definitely is. You've got Uranus and Saturn at 1 degrees and 3 degrees of Gemini. And then you've got the Saturn, so it's Saturn on Saturn. So Traja's Saturn is at 5 degrees Gemini. And then I'd even say Uranus is getting some play from Neptune on the opposite side. So Traja's Neptune at 0 degrees Sagittarius, close enough to his Jupiter to be important, is opposite to this Uranus of Muammar Gaddafi. And then, I'm not sure if I mentioned it, but yeah, I have Neptune in Virgo for Colonel Muammar Gaddafi, and Pluto at 28 degrees of Virgo. So 27 degrees, 28 degrees of Virgo. There's also, and then can't forget this part actually here. You've got Mercury tied up close to 10 degrees Virgo with the North Node of Muammar Gaddafi at 8 degrees Virgo. So I believe that's how they link. And then, last but certainly not least, happy birthday to the man that is Nasir Jones. Gotta salute you for everything you've done for hip hop and more. And he took his moniker from the man of Narcos fame. You could almost say he was the president of Colombia at one point. In fact, I think he may have even been that. Pablo Escobar. Yeah? So Nas used to use the moniker Nas Escobar back in the mid-90s. So you had Noreaga, Escobar, Gaddafi, and Capone. All rocking these names, innit? So I see the sun of Nas at 21 degrees Virgo is close enough to the 18 degrees and 19 degrees Mars in Virgo of Pablo. Yeah? And then, what else do we see for these two men? This Uranus at 3 degrees Cancer for Pablo Escobar is conjunct to the Saturn of Nas at 3 degrees Cancer again. Also by his South Node at 4 degrees Cancer. So definitely some kind of past tie-in early in Nas's life where Pablo Escobar's came up for him. And as most of us know, from around maybe 95, 96, once he started getting into writing the It Was Written album. Also see that both of these men have their moon in Aries as well. Not sure exactly what degree Nas' moon is, because don't have the birth time, but it's going to be 6 or 7 degrees in both directions, which makes it in Aries. So they both have Aries moons, conjunctions of other planets. So yeah. And I can't forget this one. I like this one. Jupiter 0 degrees for Pablo in Aquarius. Yeah, 0 degrees Aquarius. And it's Jupiter 2 degrees Aquarius for Nas. So these men may have a similar idea in terms of faith, belief, expansion. Wide networks, I would say, with Jupiter in Aquarius would definitely be a way that could play out and may have played out. Charts actually left. You know what, right? I might as well throw it in there. I was watching the Blood Money video, and if you were sharp enough, you'll clock 50 Cent in the middle of that video. Now, it seems weird, like 50, wow, way back then. But no, if you know anything about 50, he was actually like prominent in his local area, aka Queens. And he was doing his mixtapes, so he was quite big enough and blowing up at that time there. And interestingly enough, I can see 50's Mercury. It's actually close to Naz's stuff here in Cancer, but it's smack bang, well not smack bang, smack bang on Naz's south node without birth time, but it's also sitting upon Noreaga's Jupiter and Mars in Cancer. So yeah, that didn't go unnoticed by myself. Oh, and also that 50's moon, we're not sure where that is, but it's going to be in Scorpio, and it seems to be close to the Uranus of Noreaga as well. Right? So a lot of interesting synastry between all of these guys. Oh, 50 Cent took his name from another gangster, to be fair with you, called 50 Cent. If I could find that man's chart or details, then I would, would have probably put them on here too. But I feel like I've covered most of the people I wanted to talk about. So anyway, just to show you how less than by accident and more kind of like by destiny or alignment that these things go together. When you have a planet on top of another planet in the chart, we call it conjunction. And these planets seem to basically create their own partnership in how they act and kind of how a relationship forms between the people involved. So I had to just mention that for anybody who wanted to understand the technicals. But otherwise, I'm going to say peace and love. Thank you for watching. And I'm going to come back with more. And until then, yeah, just stay seated. Sign out. Deuces.